Hey everyone, welcome back to So Arizona. Today I am talking all about pests. I cannot even tell you how many questions I've gotten about how to prevent birds and rodents and insects from damaging and ruining gardens. So I thought that I would take you around my yard and garden to show you some of the things I use to prevent pests without using any chemicals. I've had so many problems with javelina. It is just crazy. I've been trying to get a little cactus garden started in my front yard, and those javelina keep digging up all of my new cactuses all the time, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm doing that is working so well. Now, I looked around our neighborhood and I saw some of the cactus that people have planted outside of their walls in their front yards that are fully open to javelina and deer, and I thought, okay, well, if I go for those varieties, then surely they'll be safe. Well, they were not. I think that javelina are attracted to newly disturbed dirt and also young tender plants because they like to dig them up and eat the roots. When we lived at our tiny house in Tucson, I had problems with javelina getting into my stock tank vegetable garden. I called Arizona Fish and Game to see if they could give me any advice, and they said that they would not come out and remove the javelina unless it was stuck inside a backyard where it was posing a threat to someone, which mine wasn't. It was outside of the fence. So the person I talked to recommended using a high-powered garden hose to squirt them from a safe distance, and that they didn't like the water at all, so that would probably at least spook them away. And that did work, although whenever I wasn't standing there on the other side of the wall with my high-powered hose, the javelina would return and eat everything. So they are very smart. A follower on Instagram recommended that I use a motion-activated sprinkler, and I don't know why I didn't think of using water before based upon the advice I got from Arizona Fish and Game, but this works really well, and it doesn't require me to have to stand there 24/7 with a high-powered garden hose in my hand because it will do the work for me. So let me show you the setup. This is the circle that I have. We've removed a lot of plants here that were left by the previous owner that were overgrown or dead. So we're kind of in the process of trying to redo this landscaping. And right now the weeds are making a huge comeback, so they're doing great. But I try to add just some cactus here and there just to make it a little more natural looking. And so that was part of what the javelina were digging up over here. Since I cannot have motion activated sprinklers at every corner of my yard, I had to use something a little bit different in this area, and that is a cage. These are the same cages that I use in my vegetable garden. I love these because you can move them around all over the place. I'll talk a little more about these when we go back to the garden so that you can see how I use them in the garden. But I love these because this is just another way that I can use these little cages to try to prevent some pests. So there's my motion activated camera. So I've got this bigger one here as well. So this is the front of my house. I told you I have a fixer-upper. It's an old burnt adobe, which we love, but it definitely needs a lot of work. So we have removed all of the shrubbery and all of the trees. They were actually holding moisture against the old adobe brick. So if you're seeing, you know, like the white spots, that is effervescent coming out from the moisture in the brick. But I wanted to just add some natural cactus and desert plants in this little area right here. And those javelina kept coming and digging them up every night, and they would chew the roots and just ruin them. So I put one of the motion activated sprinklers there, and then I also put one on the other side right over here. And so that has really, really prevented them from doing any more damage. Ever since I put those out, they have not bothered this area at all. This, you probably see, is an oak tree, and that was dropping acorns for quite a while, and they were actually ripping at this gate. I did a short on that a little while ago about how they were ruining our gate. They were tearing up the wire, and they actually ripped the gate open, and we're trying to get in to get those acorns. So they are just really crazy right now. But with the motion activated sprinkler on this side and also on that side, it has really cut down on it. And that's what it looks like when it's running. Me moving over here just kind of triggered it. So if I go over there to show it to you, I'm gonna definitely have to turn that off because I don't wanna get sprayed. So right across from this flower bed, I have this little stake that I've just kind of put up temporarily in the ground, and it has a motion activated camera here. That way I get the satisfaction of seeing those javelina squirted in the middle of the night when they come and try to eat all of my plants. So I will share a video of that next because I want you to enjoy it with me. I turned the sprinkler off just so that I could show you. It's got just around the first 3/4 of it is where it has the motion sensors. And so whenever that gets triggered by any kind of movement, this whole half gets sprayed here. So I think they're working really well and they're well worth it. The brand for this product is Orbit, and I'm going to put the photo of the product up here in case you're interested in trying it out for yourself. But the little tagline for the product says, "Don't hurt them, just squirt them." And I love that because I really don't want to hurt the javelina. I want to be able to coexist because I realize they're an important part of the ecosystem and they have been here long before I was here. So I respect that and I don't want to cause them any harm, but I just want to encourage them to go elsewhere to do their grazing where my landscaping is not going to get messed up. We've got this old saguaro here. It is so old. There are actually all kinds of woodpecker holes in it. I'm going to show you this. I know this is not part of Pests really, but it's like a little high-rise apartment building for woodpeckers, and they have raised so many broods in here, and I've set up my camera a few times just to catch them in the action. Those mom and dad woodpeckers just spend so much time, just all day every day, feeding their babies, which is really cute. This old saguaro though is not in great shape. It's super old. I really don't know how long it's been here. This house was built in 1966, so I would assume since before then maybe it was a transplant, or if it wasn't a transplant, it has been here forever. But in its place, I've got a nice little replacement, an up and coming one. So in about 50 years, maybe it'll catch up just a little bit to this one. So I've just added, you know, some basic cactus. I've got prickly pear of different sizes. I have some agaves out here. I love this dinner plate cactus. It actually bloomed last week and I missed getting the blooms for you. I think I have some old footage, so if I can find it, I will show you, but you can see these blooms have done their thing and dried up, but the fruit on these is amazing. It tastes just like watermelon, much sweeter but lighter than the normal Engelmann's prickly pear. Oh, it looks like this one is just starting to open. They're really pretty. They look like little yellow roses and they're huge. But the pod size on these is amazing. They really are a dinner plate size as a comparison. My hand to this, I'm not gonna get too close because I don't want to get stabbed, but it is a huge cactus pad. All right, I'm gonna take you over to the side yard so that you can see some of the pest prevention I have over here for the deer and javelina. I planted a couple of trees last year. One was the original tree, and then the smaller one is a cutting that I did of the original tree. But they got pretty frozen back and damaged over the winter time, so you'll have to forgive how they look right now. They are looking pretty sorry. I haven't pruned them yet, but I will, especially since the temperatures have now warmed up, and I know we're not getting any more frost for sure. It was 96 degrees here yesterday, so let's go look and see what I've got set up for them. I know this pest prevention, you know, when you put up fencing and barriers, it just never looks very good. But this is a cage that I got from Gardener's Supply, and I have the top taken off. It's got a little dome top that will sit right on top, but I took that off because the tree is just too tall for that. And so the javelina and the deer can't knock it over. I've got it surrounded by some old bricks that I had laying around, but you can see that the tree can just grow right inside of it. And so far, over the past 2 years, nothing has bothered this at all. But this poor little tree, I gotta come in and trim off all of these dead branches, but it is coming back and I think it'll be okay. It just looks a little bit ugly right now. All right, I am going to turn this back on right now because I know I will forget otherwise. You should have seen how many times I got sprayed in the face when I was setting up those sprinklers and trying to get the spread of where they sprayed the water set up properly. I was drenched. I had to go change my clothes. So it was interesting. And I'm sure my neighbors probably think that we're hillbillies over here with the cages over the cactus and the automatic sprinklers going off and the wildlife cam in the front yard. But hopefully the javelina will eventually get the clue that this is not safe grazing ground and they will move on, and then I can take some of that stuff down, but we will see. There are a couple of javelina, I think they're probably males, that travel alone, but there is also a really big pack which is made up of the females and their babies. And the babies are really cute, but I think that they establish a pattern for where they go. And for the first year that we were here, we just weren't on their route. They just did not come and mess with our yard at all. But I think because of the drought we had over the winter time, we had no winter rain. I think that they've just gotten desperate, and so they have expanded their search, and now we're on their route and they come all the time. What's really interesting about it is that I planted these prickly pear behind me a couple of years ago and they never bothered them. And then I planted some of the same variety up front and they're constantly digging them up. So I think that they are just attracted to tender young plants and also to the disturbed soil and the moisture, because I have been watering them a little bit to get them established. I took some cuttings from our other prickly pear in the backyard and I just wanted to kind of put something in this place. This is a very secluded little side area no one really comes back to, but I wanted to provide some blooms for the bees and maybe some fruit for me to collect. These are Engelmann prickly pear, and so they've just come all the way along. They are really starting to develop and grow. Look at all those new pads. So my hope is that I can provide a really drought tolerant natural landscape that will provide for us and also for the wildlife. I don't mind if the wildlife takes advantage of the flowers and the fruit just as much as I do. There are so many different things that you can use as barrier methods for creatures that are above ground. I will talk about shade cloth and row covers and frost cloth and netting, so many different things that you really can use to block birds and certain rodents as long as you fasten the edges really tightly. These measures are temporary and movable, which is actually kind of nice because you can use them in different parts of your garden over and over again. If you do want to put in more permanent structures like fencing, you can do that. You have to just bury about a foot down the edge of the fence underground so that they can't burrow under. And also I've seen flashing used along the edges. This is metal flashing that is typically used as a roofing material, and it is about 8 inches wide. It's a flat metal roll that you can get, and if you attach that to the top of the fencing, it will prevent those rodents from climbing up and over. This metal flashing is very slippery, and so it will prevent rodents from climbing up and over the fence. So that's an option too. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture or a video of that, so you will just have to look up metal flashing and you can see what I'm talking about. I ordered these metal baskets online about a year ago, and I have used them for various things, but they are like a cube. I will show you a picture of that. They flatten up and they fold because they have little metal rings on the edges that allow them to be foldable. I will just fasten them with one of these little landscape fabric pins. I will loop them through the bottom and fasten it to the ground, and this just creates an open top and bottom cage that you can set around bushes or things like that that can help to protect things. Now the top will be open on these, so if you have things that are going to want to crawl over or fly in, then you will need to cover the top. You could do that with a shade cloth fabric or a row cover and just cut it to size and put it into place that way. I've had so much trouble with gophers eating the roots of my fruit trees and my shrubs and just killing them. And so I've gone through quite a few replacement shrubs and they just keep coming. I have tried all kinds of measures, and I really think that one of the best measures you can do is to create a barrier to protect your plants while you're working on the gopher problem in general. So these are called root guard baskets, and they are made up of a fine metal mesh. And this mesh is very lightweight, and it's actually bendable. So if I wanted to stick my finger through the mesh material, I could do that. And so my hope is that as the roots of the trees and the shrubs get bigger, they can penetrate this mesh material and grow out instead of being restricted within this basket, because that will impede the growth of the tree or the shrub if that happens. So I'm trying this out on some of my small trees and shrubs, and so far the gophers have not been able to bother them. You will have to leave the edges of this up above the ground so that they can't just dig over, and that way they have to actually emerge and come up and over, which they won't do, because then they'll have to dig back down and then they'll be in the basket. So far these are working pretty well. I ordered this product online as well. You could look it up. It's gopher baskets, or root guard sometimes they're called, and there are a lot of different companies for these. So those are just a couple of other options that you can use for trying to protect your plants from rodents and from birds. This is not an extensive list. Obviously there are sprays. I've heard of people putting cayenne pepper powder on things to protect from squirrels. I have heard of people spraying coyote urine products on things to try to deter rodents and other animals from getting into their plants. Gardens are all very unique, and the pests that you have in your yard are very unique, and so you have to find solutions that work for you. So I'm just sharing some things that work for me in my garden, and hopefully some of those might be something that would help you too. Some of you may not know, I'm a master gardener in Pima County, and I was just at our demonstration gardens over the weekend, and I saw some really good pest prevention measures that they have set up in one of their container gardens. So even though this is not my garden, I wanted to share it with you just in case it might help you. There are a lot of really affordable looking and creative measures that they have in place in their container garden that looked like they would be very useful for some of you. So I'm going to cut to that and show you the footage in case you have container gardens or raised beds or small spaces. I think these would be some really good affordable options for you. These are the cages that I have talked about before for all kinds of different things. We've used this over cactus and over vegetables in the garden, and right now they are being used for grapes. But I think I'm going to have to get our little extenders out, because I'm seeing this little guy escaping out of there, and I don't want it to grow through here and get tangled, because then it will be nearly impossible to remove these. I've talked about it in a previous video, but these little house-shaped chicken wire cages come with extenders. So it's basically like another 18 inches or so, and it's just a box that you can put down that's open on the top, and then you just set this part on top of it. So it just makes it taller, and that is really, really helpful. These are the little dome or bell-shaped cloches. These are made out of chicken wire, and they were not cheap from Gardener's Supply, but I've been using them for over 3 years, and they work so well. And I have just been moving these all over the garden, but right now I have them on my eggplants. I bought these beautiful eggplant seedlings, and I put them out, and the next day I came out to find all the leaves completely shredded like this, and it was from the birds. So I don't want to harm the birds. The birds provide very useful services in the garden. They till the soil, they eat tons and tons of pests. So I don't want to chase the birds off. I want them here, but I do want to prevent them from eating my tender young seedlings. So I will just cover them with these little cloches. Once the eggplants are bigger, they don't bother them anymore. But for now, this is how my bed is going to look, and that's just fine. There are times where you have to get the help of some form of an organic treatment, but when I can, I try to just use barrier methods like frost cloth or mesh netting or those cages that I've been sharing with you, because I really don't want to hurt things. And even with organic treatments, if you spray them, you are going to hurt beneficial insects and pollinators too, unfortunately. And so I really try to tolerate the populations unless they get too great. I try spraying them off with water, which works really well for aphids, or I just try to cover them in some way so that I don't have to run the risk of hurting all of the beneficial insects that I work so hard to attract and that are so important to the health of the garden. All right, let's go see 2 other things that I am using right now to protect my plants from the pests. They're actually things that work really well all through the season, and so I love being able to use tools in multiple different ways and not have to buy specialized things. We are at that time of year where the sun is so bright already, and it's only 7 a.m. So this is an example of how to use netting. This is my peach tree, and it's got all kinds of lovely peaches on it, but I have this netting. I will show a picture of this product too. It's something that I bought over a year ago online, and I just had it, and I actually forgot about it until I was cleaning out my shed. And so I was really happy to rediscover it. And so let me show you how this thing works. So around the bottom, it's got a little cinch drawstring thing, so you can cinch it up. It looks like this has kind of become blown over. It was so windy here yesterday, so I'm gonna have to readjust it, but it's meant to cinch around the trunk to keep little critters from just shimmying up it. So that's really nice. It's meant to accommodate many different size trees. I love the fact that you can reuse this thing over and over again. So this peach tree is pretty tall, but it's working really well. I'm definitely going to have to adjust this. The high winds we got yesterday were crazy. So the zipper is all the way down here, but this is another feature that I like about this, is it has a zipper, and it's meant to be further up so that you can unzip it and reach in and get the fruit if you want to, and then zip it back up again and not have to remove this to harvest in case the harvest doesn't come all at once and it comes a little bit at a time. I think that's a really nice feature. So with any pro, there's always a con. This thing is super lightweight, and much more lightweight than the other mesh netting that I'll show you in a minute that I used on this tree last year. That netting was way too heavy, and it weighed the tree down and bent the branches, and when we got windy days, it just really rattled around a lot and it knocked off a lot of the fruit. This netting is super, super lightweight, and it's almost just like pantyhose or something, only not stretchy, but it's really that thin. What I like about it is that it doesn't weigh the tree down like the other netting that I used last year did. What I don't like about it is that it's very easily snagged. So as I was trying to put it on over here in this little fruit corner, I still have a lot of weeds, and it was getting hung up on the weeds, and I actually snagged it in a couple of places, which is not ideal. So you have to be really careful when you're applying it to the tree. You also have to be really careful when you're removing it in case it gets caught on one of the branches. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, I think this is a great product, and I don't know if it's available anymore because it's been over a year since I ordered it, but I'm sure that you could probably find something that is similar in case it's not available. So here on my espalier apple trees, I've got mesh netting on this too. And this is the netting that I was talking about that was a much heavier material. This material is kind of like those little produce bags. If you've ever bought a couple pieces of garlic or a couple of pieces of ginger, and they come in those kind of thicker plastic mesh little bags, that is exactly what this is like. And this works great over top of rows, or in this case, clipped to my espalier apple trees. I have some little turnbuckle tape wire and turnbuckle trellising on here, and I just will attach these spring clips to it, and that seems to have deterred the squirrels. And also I got some aphids last year on these apple trees, just the tender tips, and so far I haven't gotten those either this year. All right, so the next thing is a row cover, and I have talked about these row covers so much. I have heavier weight ones that work for frost prevention during the winter, and I have lighter weight ones that work for pest prevention in the summertime. So you can get those in different fabric weights for different purposes, even though they're kind of the same product. So these are called row covers. Behind me, I've got this one half on because I'm trying to block the western exposure, the afternoon sun, because I'm trying to finish up some of the lettuces that I have. And so I've got that half on still, but this works really well for preventing pests. When you put this on, I use the hoops that I've talked about many times from Johnny's. I'll link those below. These are a bendable hoop that I move around all over the garden so I can reuse them over and over again, and they are so useful. So I'd highly recommend those. I use them to put shade cloth over top of my plants. I use them to put frost cloth or row covers or even that mesh netting, so they work for anything. I will affix them with the spring clips, and so it works really well. So let me show you how I have this set up. Right now I have this half on, as I said, because I'm trying to finish these beautiful lettuces. Just look at those in there. I've got my tomato seedlings right beside them so that they can be getting started as the lettuces are finishing. So I've just got this little hoop thing here, and I've got my cover, and then I have my spring clips on here, and these work pretty well just to affix it. And like I said, you can use them over and over again. Here's another example of some of that cover, just covering some of my new seedlings to keep them safe. The benefit of using netting over your rows is for protecting certain plants like cabbages from those little moths flying in and laying their eggs, and then you get caterpillars on your cabbages. Or maybe in the summertime you want to try to prevent whiteflies on your tomatoes or things like that. They work really well for preventing flying insects that try to come in and eat your vegetables. The row covers will also do the same exact thing, but they will also provide a little bit of filter from the sun. So it's like giving your plants a little bit of sunscreen. So if you don't want to use shade cloth and you have a lightweight summer row cover, that may work for certain plants. Now, I don't like to use that on some of my sun-loving things like tomatoes and peppers. I like to use just a regular 40% shade cloth, which I talked about in my previous video, but that is an option. Another option for weighing down this row cover is putting rocks on top. So I have done that before. I have a rock border all the way along my beds, and I have used, especially during periods of high wind, I will bring the edge down and I will weigh it down with rocks. You can also use the soil to weigh it down. So I have seen people bury this with a little layer of soil all the way along, and of course that is meant for a full season of just being there. You wouldn't want to go through that every time you want to take off your cover or your netting and then put it back down. So some of these things are a little bit easier. I actually prefer using these little clips just because I can very easily raise it and get what I want and then put it back down. But sometimes those clips do need a little bit of help with the rocks if we're going to be having high winds. For example, yesterday this happened again. So I had a lot of wind here, and it blew everything off. So those spring clips just could not withstand all of the high winds we had. So in this case, probably weighing them down with rocks would have been better, but that's all right because I'm actually about ready to take this off anyway, because the peppers that I had were hardened off and I need to harvest the rest of those carrots and things. So I think that it's time anyway. Mother Nature actually helped me out. In case you're wondering, yes, I have used shade cloth for the same exact purpose, for keeping birds off and certain rodents, but you have to fasten it and you have to weigh it down if you're going to do that. These are some of the measures that I use to physically block birds and rodents and insects from eating my vegetables, and I hope that some of those things will work for you in your garden as well. I do want to say though that I know that I am really fortunate to have a wall around my garden. This was not always the case. I have lived in places with no fencing at all, or with chain link fencing that only blocks the largest of things like javelina, but I am really happy that I have a wall around my garden, and I realize that a lot of you don't have that, and that is why I'm trying to share a lot of these other methods that I use to try to do the best that I can for preventing wildlife from eating my vegetables. We are sharing our spaces with them, and and we're laying out a salad bar for them, which is basically inviting them to come in with a meal ticket to dine. And I would do the same thing if I were living in the desert where food was scarce. So I try to just prevent them from eating the things that I don't want them to eat, or to prevent them from eating seedlings while they're young. So for example, my corn and my beans, I will cover those up, and my sunflowers, until they get big enough. So in some instances, it's only a matter of time that you have to cover and be patient and work a little bit harder to prevent them from being eaten. I'm thinking about doing another follow-up video on other methods of pest prevention or treatment, such as organic treatments and sprays. But if I do that, I want to be completely transparent about both the pros and the cons, because there are some drawbacks of using organic products to treat your plants. I want to talk about acceptable levels of pest presence in our gardens and why it's important to tolerate them. And I also want to talk about some physical means that you can use to remove those pests from your plants. I can also share which products you use for which insects, because you can't use the same product on everything, because insects have different habits and body structures, and those organic sprays and products work differently on each insect. So if that is something that would be helpful for you, please let me know in the comments below, and I can try to get a video like that together for you. I'm Kara from Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy gardening.